How often do you encounter an engine that spans nearly 3 decades of its lifespan and manages to power essentially anything from a road car to race cars with up to 20 times the power of the road car engine? Seemingly an ordinary 4-cylinder was over-engineered and built so robust that it found its use in all kinds of automobile applications, including the most powerful Formula 1 to this day. The story begins with a racing driver and engineer, Baron Alex von Falkenhausen, who sketched a brand new inline 4 for BMW. Designed for ordinary automobiles, specifically the Neue Klasse, the displacement started at 1500 cc, leaving space for enlargement up to 2 liters. Initially known as the M115, with the 15 suggesting its volume, the engine consisted of a cast iron engine block and a cast aluminum cylinder head. Considering it was introduced in 1962, it was solidly built with 5 main bearings, forged counterweighted crankshaft, and a chain-driven single overhead camshaft head with hemispherical combustion chambers. The racing potential of this relatively unassuming engine was unleashed soon after in the late 1960s. BMW experimented with the engine using a special radial valve configuration, but due to its redundant complexity, it was soon dropped. Later in the 70s, the FIA changed the rules for Formula 2 and allowed 2 liters from 1972. With Nocken Paul Roche as the lead engine designer, the team engineered a high-revving beast of a motor that absolutely crushed the competition in a March 732, with Jean-Pierre Jacques Charrier behind the wheel. The engine received titanium connecting rods and a compression ratio as high as 13:1. While the Formula 2 success was evident, the Munich company would not stop there, standing right in front of its biggest challenge. In the late 1970s, Renault proved that Formula 1 was heading towards the turbo era, and Cosworth's domination was about to end. BMW's turbocharged 1.4-liter M12 variant of the engine managed to reach over 550 horsepower at 2.6 bars of boost in a touring race car, which was significantly more than the DFV. Engineers realized the potential of the M10-derived turbo power plant, and Roche, with team manager Jochen Nierpasch overseeing the development, began to create a suitable engine for the F1 journey. As the turbo coefficient was 2, unlike 1.4 elsewhere, the engine displacement with forced induction was allowed to be just under 1500 cc. Initially, the goal was to hire Niki Lauda and collaborate with McLaren, but neither of these materialized, and the BMW board refused to greenlight the project. Nierpasch resigned, and with Dieter Stapert as his successor. With more conviction, the board eventually gave it a try with Brabham. The power of the M12 engine was now approximately 7 times more than the stock power of the road engine. The amusing thing is that they didn't even use a special block. All these race engines were based on the original cast iron unit that had already covered over 100,000 kilometers, which was more than enough for any casting imperfections to manifest. Then, by order of Roche, they were stored outside for months to experience heat and cold temperature changes, rainy weather, and there is a myth that employees were allowed to urinate on them. While all the others used twin-turbo V6 and V8 units, BMW went a different way with the inline 4 single-turbo. With the possible 2-liter enlargement in mind, the M10 had enough material and the block itself was incredibly strong. The fact that it had only 4 cylinders meant that it had also fewer valves, a smaller footprint, less friction and produced much less heat. This allowed the Brabham chassis designer, Gordon Murray, to accommodate smaller radiators, make the body sleeker and achieve better straight line performance. The M10/13 had cylinders of 89.2 by 60mm in size to allow a 9.5 to 11,500 RPM limit. The internals were ruggedly built with Mahler pistons and titanium connecting rods. Compared to the M10, the M12 had valve-trained gears for camshaft drive and a drive sump oil lubrication. The compression ratio was dropped from the naturally aspirated race version of 13:1 to 7.5:1 and later even lower to prevent detonation, and a single triple K turbo was used. The power began at 550, then in 1983 it reached 680, and later 740 up to 900 horsepower in racing trim. Without boost pressure regulation, the sky was basically the limit, and with the special fuel that BMW used, the loose wording and the RON 102 octane limit were not enough to prevent development of a custom fuel for the application. Roche worked with 41 other engineers on the engine. They had plenty of resources at their disposal. At the time, Brabham, then owned by Ben Ecclestone, initially used the DFV before early reliability issues and troubles of the BMW engine were solved. The Brabham BMW cooperation nearly fell apart as the engine kept malfunctioning due to the injection and ignition issues caused by the massive power surge. It utilized a Bosch ignition and Kugelfischer injection, and it took some time before they developed a suitable map. The desired achievement finally came in the middle of the 1982 season when the BMW-powered Brabham BT50 secured its first victory in Canada with Nelson Piquet. This marked the beginning of the turbo era and the end of the ultimate Cosworth period. When the BMW engine was fully utilized in the championship, Piquet managed to secure his second title in 1983, which was also the peak year of the Brabham BMW cooperation. After 1983, victories were scarce, and most of the time the car achieved a lower position or retired. The engine or the turbo often failed in 1984 and 1985 seasons. Furthermore, with a 220-liter fuel limit per race, its fuel consumption often prevented it from finishing successfully, as the M12 used a tremendous amount of fuel to prevent detonation and help cool the internals. Admittedly, the BMW M12/13 was the most powerful unit on the grid in 1986, which was also the single year when naturally aspirated engines were not allowed to participate. BMW went full crazy in 1986, developing the M12/13/1 engine that was laid down 72 degrees for the Brabham BT55, while the Benetton B186 used the upright version. The Benetton managed to secure a single victory in Mexico in 1986 and achieved a highest top speed of 352 km/h in Italy, but that was about it. The engine reached boost figures over 5.5 bar as the wastegate was locked shut during qualifications. Under these circumstances, the engine basically delivered the best possible performance for a couple of minutes before it grenaded itself into halves and the car apart. Gordon Murray said that they used dry ice and water spraying on the intercooler to cool that beast down just to get that one perfect qualification lap, and it would last a couple of minutes. No dyno was able to precisely measure the engine power beyond 1000 horsepower. The estimated peak power was upwards of 12 to 1300 horsepower. Some even say 1400 horsepower, which is like 20 times the power of the stock motor, and nearly 1000 horsepower per liter. It's hard to imagine such power figures from an engine this tiny. The turbo lag was beyond imaginable, and the throttle timing out of the corner must have been planned precisely. Anyway, it's incredible what Roche was able to build from what seemed like a normal, boring piece of an engine block.